Well, as a part of our Centered series, which is all about worldview, we've been talking about how to share your Christ-centered worldview with someone who doesn't have that. Now, up until this point, we've looked at what the Bible has to say about it's our manner, our attitude that we have whenever we're interacting with people, and that's super important. Now, our next step is to use the worldview material we've been talking about as a way of making the case that the Christ-centered worldview is actually the truth. So the best thing about this approach is that it doesn't require you or I to have all the answers or to act defensive or even do all the talking. We can help people have insight into their own worldview as well as see the strength of the Christ-centered worldview as we kind of interact. So here's a small example of how that works. Okay, remember, your worldview is your beliefs about the most important and meaningful questions of life. And that means that the person you're talking to has answered those questions for themselves on some level down deep inside their own minds. Dig around for what those beliefs are. A great way to get people in deep conversations is to ask them what they believe and why they believe it. Now, you'll get some important insight into their story and their hangups that they have about Christianity or whatever. For instance, a good question to ask someone is, where, in their view, in their opinion, did everything come from? Now, they might say God, they might say they don't know, they might say nothing, or it's always been here. Now, depending on the answer, you can follow up with other questions. Now, keep in mind, outside of I don't know, there's really only three options that most people grab in some loose form. First, the more scientific people would say something like it made itself, which means it wasn't intentional or personal. Now, it's just a matter of matter doing whatever it does. There's no goals, there's no purposes. It's just the laws of nature banging things around. But increasingly, I've found that people are getting a little disillusioned by that, so they'll think of themselves as spiritual, and what that means is they likely believe in some kind of force, like some loose idea like you find in Star Wars. Typically, if you can get people to commit to one of those ideas, you can ask good questions that make them think about the implications of those things. Now, I remember having this opportunity to talk to a young guy. He had rejected his Christian faith outright, and he had grabbed hold of atheism. And his parents asked me to talk to him, and he told me after our full conversation that he planned on trying to beat me up about the stuff in the Bible where God is being unjust or cruel or something like that. But we never got there because I confirmed that he believed now, according to him, that the universe was nothing more than matter. Now, with that in mind, I was able to ask him where his idea of justice came from. How do we go from random, accidental, physical matter to the concept of justice, which is like a non-physical idea? And how do you go from there to a sense that we have to follow rules of justice like it's some higher idea outside of human beings? If humans came up with it, why am I obligated to obey it? In other words, I was just kind of asking him things like that. He was condemning God for being unjust, but according to his own beliefs, justice really doesn't exist in the true sense that he was really thinking of it. And on that score, you can think even about it further. Is like, why are the movements of your brain cells superior to mine? There's all kinds of things like that you can talk about. Now, it's just one example of how getting people to commit to answers to the key questions can help them see problems with their own beliefs and strengthen the evidence for a Christ-centered worldview. Now, to get used to this kind of thinking, my challenge to you would be to take some time to think about a world that was truly made up of just physical properties, and they have no goal, no purpose, no end game. What implications does that have for life, just in your own thinking? If you get in tune with that, it will help you lovingly challenge other people's non-Christian beliefs and keep you off the defensive. Hope that helps. See you next time.